Hello everyone. This is the 24th part of the story, I'm Voldemort. Chapter 163 Final Return to Hogwarts. Tom made a very big mistake. On the day he and Druella were set to take the train to Hogwarts, they both arrived at King's Cross Station as themselves. No disguise or anything that could hide their identities at all. Tom thought that the hype around him would cool off a bit when school started up again, but that seemed to be a bad prediction. Nobody dared to cause a scene in the Muggle area of the station, as that would break the statute of secrecy, but the second they stepped into platform 9-3/4, all bets were off. As they stepped through the pillar, they were instantly stormed with fans, reporters, and photographers. Although Tom has been through this before, this time it was on a whole other level. The people on the platform were packed shoulder to shoulder like sardines. Reporters surrounded the magical entrance with photographers close by to get the front page photos. Many people were holding signs with Tom's name written on them, and others had his picture drawn as well. Some of the more hardcore fans were chanting his name over and over, with many joining in as well. I think I know how celebrities like Justin Bieber feel. These people are nuts. Tom thought as he saw the situation on the platform. Tom was literally stuck at the entrance of the platform with nowhere to go. He couldn't traverse the sea of people to board the train unless he used magic on them, which he won't do as it could ruin his reputation. Soon, other students returning to Hogwarts came through the entrance and became stuck as well. As Tom was stuck there, reporters started throwing out as many questions as they could. He tried to answer all of them, but the noise from all of the people present made it hard to hear anything at all. After what felt like forever, Aurors came rolling in and firing off spells to disperse the crowd. They were all told to leave if they weren't a student or a parent of a Hogwarts student. Thankfully, with the threat of the Aurors looming over them, the reporter, photographers, and fanatical fans left the platform swiftly. As all of them left, Tom stepped forward and addressed the Aurors and remaining people. I'm sorry about that. I may not have caused it, as I can't control the actions of other people, but they came here for me, so I feel partly responsible. Tom said, appeasing some of the more disgruntled parents, who simply wanted to see their children off to school. Turning to the Aurors, Tom gave them a thankful smile. Thanks for breaking that up. It was getting pretty bad there for a moment. Tom thanks them and they simply wave it off. No problem, Your Highness. We're just doing our jobs. The lead Auror says respectfully. Your Highness, huh? I like it. Tom thought as he heard the way the Auror addressed him. With that done, Tom and Druella hopped onto the train bound for Hogwarts. The ride was as long as they remembered, but time flies when you're having fun, and they were certainly having fun all alone in their compartment together. /N, wink wink. Nudge nudge. When they arrived at Hogwarts, Tom wasn't stampeded by students like last year. They seemed to have learned from the last time and decided to respect Tom's boundaries. That doesn't mean he didn't get some annoying students asking for autographs among other things, but those were mainly new first years, so Tom didn't get too annoyed about it. After the first years were sorted and everyone ate their fill, the school year officially began. This year, Tom and Druella would have to take their N.E.W.Ts, which won't be hard at all, as they're way ahead of every other 7th years. Even if he were to worry about it, he has until the end of the year to take the tests. This is also Tom's last year to get the houses united as a student of Hogwarts. He'll do his best, but he may have to continue his work as a teacher next year. With Tom's grades, fame, and good standing with Headmaster Dippet, it would be incredibly easy to get a job for any teaching position. Maybe he should become the next headmaster as well? Being in the position to mold the young minds of the wizarding world would be ideal after all. He'll have to talk to the headmaster about his future employment. On the day after the welcoming feast, Tom and many other club presidents started advertising towards the new first years. Due to Tom's booming fame, almost every first year showed up to join the self-defense club. Not only did the first years join, but many that gave up last year came back to rejoin as well, which Tom found hilarious. Classes were the same as always. Tom was at the top with Druella right behind him. After handling the new influx of club members, Tom decided to apply for something that he has been putting off for a while now. His apparition license. Due to having elves and the ability to make portals at will, Tom has neglected to learn how to apparate. Applying was fairly easy though. Tom simply let his head of house, Professor Slughorn, know. Slughorn would then file the paperwork and Tom would have an apparition class added to his schedule. Once the teacher of said class sees that he's ready, Tom can go to the ministry to take a test. If he passes the ministry's apparition test, he'll have a license to apparate whenever he wishes. Chapter 164, Professor? With the apparition class added to his schedule and everything else taken care of, including the yearly recruitment of new followers, Tom set up a meeting with Headmaster Dippet. Thanks to his skyrocketed fame, recruiting the Slytherin's second years was extremely easy. Everyone wanted to become his follower, especially after hearing about his Slytherin airship. Not only was the famous Tom Riddle a Pendragon, but he's also a descendant of every pure-blood family's favorite founder, Salazar Slytherin. The kids were practically begging him to accept their oaths of loyalty, which was a nice change from his usual need to threaten them. As soon as the time came to meet with the headmaster, Tom made his way to the office alone. Druella wasn't a very big fan of Headmaster Dippet. He tends to ignore her presence whenever Tom enters the room. Seeing that she would probably be annoyed if she were there, Tom decided that it would be best to go alone this time. Getting to the gargoyle, Tom gave the password he was instructed to use. Fiddlesticks, Tom says, and the passage opens. Climbing up the moving stairs, Tom came to a stop and knocked on the door leading to the headmaster's office. Knock knock. Yeah, I think I'll become the headmaster. The aesthetic is nice, Tom thought as he waited for a reply. Come in. He hears a muffled voice from the other side of the door. Opening the door, he's met with the very beautiful and lavish scenery of the headmaster's office. Yup, this is going to be mine. Tom made up his mind at that moment. Tom, I was delighted to hear that you wished to speak with me. What can I do for you? Headmaster Dippet asks as he stands from his desk. You don't mind if I call you Tom, right? Yes, that's fine. I don't mind at all. I wanted to talk to you about what I'll be doing after Hogwarts. Tom reveals as he walks up to the desk. Oh, I'm sure you've given it a lot of thought, like any other graduating student. The headmaster nods in understanding and motions to the chairs in front of his desk. Please, have a seat. Taking a seat, Tom gives Headmaster Dippet a thankful smile. Tell me where you wish to be employed, and I'll write the best recommendation I can possibly give. The headmaster says, genuinely happy to help Tom in any way. Thank you, Headmaster. I appreciate the help. Tom says gratefully. Could you write a recommendation to yourself? Tom hints at what he wants. When Tom arrived talking about his time after Hogwarts, Dippet thought that Tom would want a letter of recommendation for a job in the ministry. He didn't have the slightest clue that Tom would want to work as a professor, but that didn't deter his excitement one single bit. The second he hears Tom's statement, his mouth hung open before a beaming smile graces his face. Let me just make sure that I didn't mishear what you said. Are you asking for a job here after you graduate? The headmaster asked joyfully. Yes, I would be thrilled to teach at Hogwarts. If I were to spend my life working at something, teaching is something that I believe I can be proud of. Ever since I started the self-defense club, I've learned that I like teaching and I seem to be fairly good at it. What better place to use those skills than the #1 school of magic in the world? Tom explains. With every word out of Tom's mouth, Headmaster Dippet's smile grows larger and larger. This may be the greatest hire that he'll ever accomplish as the headmaster of Hogwarts. I would be more than happy to hire you for almost any professor position, Tom. Although, are you sure you want to be a teacher? You're young and have all year to make your decision. Headmaster Dippet asked, testing his resolve. Yes, I'm certain that this is what I want to do. You don't have to worry, Tom says with determination in his voice. All right, you're hired. Is there a certain position you're interested in? I may have to decline if a capable professor is already teaching the position you want, though. The headmaster agrees immediately. Haha. Thanks, headmaster. Tom laughs as he knew getting the job would be easy with his credentials. As for the position, I can teach almost any one of them except divination. The ones that I find the most interesting would be defense, dark arts, potions, and transfiguration. As Tom said transfiguration, the headmaster's eyes lit up. The former transfiguration professor is dead thanks to aiding and abetting the Dark Lord Grindelwald. The position has been passed down through a few individuals ever since, but none of them seemed to meet the standards that a Hogwarts professor must attain. Even the professor that he just hired for this year didn't have the greatest resume, but the school needs a teacher, so he was hired nonetheless. I can guarantee you the position of Transfiguration professor next year, Dippet stated instantly. Based on Tom's grades, he makes a far better Transfiguration professor than any of the current applicants. If Dippet could hire him now, he 100% would do it, but he can't hire students as professors. Even with Tom's notoriety, it's against school policy. All right, that sounds good to me. Tom agrees, laughing on the inside about how he's taking over Dumbledore's positions. Would you mind if I make a request? Of course, ask away. Dippet replies curiously. When Professor Slughorn retires, I would like to take up his position as head of Slytherin House. Chapter 165, Future Reforms. When Professor Slughorn retires, I would like to take up his position as head of Slytherin House. Tom voiced his want to lead Slytherin House. When Headmaster Dippet heard his request, he quiets down and thought it over. On one hand, Tom would most likely get the job done better than anyone else. On the other hand, that position is very coveted and many are in line to take it. The reason Tom wants to lead the Slytherin House is fairly obvious. They're his followers and it would be easier to control them as their head of house. Not to mention how much easier it would be to recruit the second years with him in control. Also, taking away all the schemes, Tom just wants to lead his own house. He spent almost 7 years in Slytherin and it would be sad to just leave it behind. I can do my best to get you into that position, but I have to worry about the school board. If one of the teachers that have been waiting to take Professor Slughorn's place doesn't like my choice, which would be you, they can go to the board in order to flip my decision. The headmaster says with determination to get Tom into the position he requested. Tom understood that he couldn't control everything in the school, so he gave the headmaster a thankful smile. I think I have a few followers on the Hogwarts board, don't I? Tom thought as he may be able to get his position after all. Thank you, headmaster. No problem at all, Tom. Feel free to ask me for anything at any time. Who knows, one of these days you may be sitting on the other side of this desk. Headmaster Dippet hints at Tom taking over his position. That would be a dream come true, sir, Tom says as he looks over at the grandfather clock. It's almost dinner time. We should be getting to the Great Hall by about now. Oh, you're right, the headmaster says as he checks the clock. Why don't you go first? I still have a small amount of paperwork to sort through. All right, see you later. With Tom's future employment taken care of, he doesn't have to worry about failing Lady Hogwarts' mission. It's not like the mission would take much longer anyway. The houses are already on fairly friendly terms with one another. Of course, there are radicals in every group, but those radical groups have shrunken considerably. When Tom thought about it, he actually does want to work at Hogwarts. Not just to complete Lady Hogwarts' mission, but to become headmaster. Thinking of all the future threats that could appear, Tom wants to reform the Hogwarts curriculum. A stronger wizarding world doesn't just mean politics and technology. No, Tom would have to raise the bar of what the average wizard's strength is considered. What better way to accomplish this than to take over the school and tweak the curriculum? The most drastic change he could think of making would be adding a spell practice class at the end of every day. Every student would be instructed to practice spells until they had almost no magic left in their reserves. This would be the same thing that Tom has been doing every night before bed. It would increase their reserves and help hone their spellcasting skills. Although this is one of the practices that Tom didn't want to spread outside of his organization, as it could produce someone stronger than himself, due to becoming an avatar and the master of death, Tom isn't very scared of anything in the wizarding world anymore. As for his followers, soon enough many of his trusted ones would be enhanced by the super soldier serum. That should put them in a place far above every other wizard and which could ever hope to reach. If his assumption is correct, the serum should enhance his followers' magic as well as their bodies. Erskine said that serum would enhance everything, which means magic is very likely to be enhanced as well. Although that is wonderful, Tom will have to make sure none of his potential candidates are psychopaths or even potential psychopaths. Once again, Erskine said that the serum enhances everything, including who you are as a person. Tom doesn't want to create another Red Skull situation, so he'll have to screen his potential candidates thoroughly. Maybe use legilimency on them and sift through their mind to find out who they are as a person? It's a bit extreme, but Tom is trying to create a super wizard army. He can't allow for any crazies to join along as well. They would just cause problems for his plans somewhere down the line. Though, these are things to worry about when the time comes. Tom still has to finish learning how to take apart and put together all of the technology in his secret lair. He has already read and memorized every college book that he had his elves steal for him. Now, all he has to do is keep working with the tech he stole in order to understand and work with it. Back to the Hogwarts curriculum, Tom has many ideas about what to change. When he becomes headmaster, the students of Hogwarts will be in for a rude awakening. If they thought their work was hard now, imagine how they will react to a gym class added to their schedule. As Tom left the headmaster's office, he made his way to the Great Hall. It was dinner time and he was starving. Chapter 166 Apparition Class. When the time came for Tom's first ever class on Apparition, he was a little bit nervous. Apparition is something commonly used in wizarding society, and Tom's elves have used it to transport him places many times, but the thing that makes Tom so nervous isn't the teleporting itself, but what could happen if it's done in the wrong way. Splinching is what occurs when a witch or wizard apparates or disapparates unsuccessfully, leaving part of his or her clothes or body behind in their former location. The degree of splinching can range from minimal, such as loss of hair, to life-threatening, such as loss of flesh or muscle, though the damage is usually reparable. Tom doesn't have the luxury of relying on his elves to apparate. No, he has to do it himself, and that worries him a little. Although he has a healing factor, which might be able to regrow missing limbs, it isn't a 100% thing as Tom hasn't tested that yet. In order to test it, he would have to cut something off. What if that thing he cuts off doesn't regrow as he hopes? Tom would rather keep his appendages and not know than lose one and know for sure. If I splinch myself today, then I'll learn for sure whether I can regrow anything or not. Tom thought as he made his way to an open field outside the castle, as the class would be held outdoors. Arriving at the meeting area, Tom is met with a large number of students. Although apparition is dangerous during the learning stages, it's also one of the more handy and interesting things to learn in the wizarding world. Not to mention the dangerous aspect of it, which could be appealing to a portion of the students, as danger could be seen as exciting to some. Due to the learning restrictions placed on apparition, which Tom understands completely, the class was completely made up of 7th years. When the teacher arrived, she gave a long lecture on the dangers of her class. Once she finished the lecture, she started teaching while speaking as clearly as possible. When operating, one has to remember the 3 Ds: destination, determination, and deliberation. You have to be completely determined to reach your destination and move without haste, but with deliberation. A witch or wizard ordinarily requires a wand in order to apparate, but like many other spells, it could be performed without one. As she says this, she apparates a meter to her left without a wand. Although it can be done, that doesn't mean you will be doing it that way. You must learn to crawl before standing on 2 feet and walking with the rest of us, which is why we won't be apparating ourselves today or even tomorrow. She says, pulling out a fist-sized ball from her pocket. You will be apparating an object. Remembering the 3 Ds, you will think of your destination, which in this case will be where I stood before. Then you will firmly and purposefully will the ball to appear in said location. Finally, you will act slowly and carefully, as to not make mistakes due to rushing. As she finished her explanation, a rustling was heard as the ball in her hand disappeared and appeared where she stood before apparating earlier. Many of the students have seen their parents or elves apparate before, but the skill and finesse which their teacher does it is impressive. With a wave of the teacher's wand, fist-sized balls drop before every student's feet. Now, I want all of you to spread out and practice as I've shown you. Don't worry. If you make a mistake, the nurse is already on standby. She says, and Tom hesitantly grabs his ball, moving away in order to practice. Thanks to not having to practice on himself, Tom wasn't nearly as nervous as before. Mistakes could still be made, but with this type of practice, the possibility is much lower. At worst, someone may lose a finger. At best, the ball may get destroyed. If someone is truly mentally challenged, then something worse could happen, but that would take a truly idiotic person. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. A few minutes into their practice, a scream filled the grassy field. One of the more idiotic Gryffindors tried apparating himself a few meters away and lost a big chunk of his leg. He thought himself better than the exercise given by their teacher and wanted to prove his worth. As soon as he disappeared and reappeared, he had a blinding victorious smile on his face. Though, that smile didn't last long before it was replaced with a pained look of regret. He screamed in pain and fell to the floor like a puppet without its strings. As soon as it happened, the teacher waved her wand and the school nurse appeared, carting off the idiotic Gryffindor for medical treatment. Thankfully, he lives in a world of magic, so his injury will most likely be healed in a few days. As the injured Gryffindor was carted off, the teacher looked over her students. This is why we practice on an object at first. It isn't because you aren't capable of apparition, but because you are inexperienced. Now, get back to work, she says, lecturing the class once again. By the time the class ended, Tom went through about 10 balls, as he would splinch them into pieces. Although he destroyed so many of them, Tom started to get the hang of it near the end. The last ball he apparat only had a small piece of it missing, which was far better than every other student. After another day of practice, he should have this exercise completely mastered. Chapter 167 Campaigning begins. While Tom was hard at work studying in school, Lord Black and his other followers have been working hard as well. When the winter break passed and the new year arrived, the campaign for the seat of Minister of Magic began, and Lord Black wasn't the only candidate. There are a total of 10 candidates running in this election, and Lord Black only has to worry about 2 of them. The current minister, Hortensia Millifut. She has been elected twice in a row and is currently working towards her 3rd re-election. Although she wasn't extremely popular during her 2 terms as minister, she did gain a serious boost in popularity thanks to Tom's actions. First, Tom killed the Dark Lord Grindelwald during her 2nd term. Although she didn't contribute anything to get it done, it still happened during her reign, so to speak. Due to the death of Grindelwald and many of his core acolytes, she was also the sitting minister when the war was coming to a close. Once again, she didn't do anything but will be remembered as the person in charge at the time. Not to mention the awards ceremony, where Hortensia presented the Order of Merlin, first class, to Tom in front of the large majority of Wizarding Britain's population. Hortensia Millifut has gained a good amount of popularity thanks to Tom, and as long as he doesn't back another candidate, she will most likely win thanks to her association with him. Secondly, the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Lord Alphonse Potter. Yes, that's right. The father of Tom's friend Charles will be running for Minister of Magic. Although he doesn't have the same popularity as the current minister, the Potter family is well known for being very progressive and kind. Many Potters have married Muggleborns throughout the years, and have been known to fight for the rights of Muggleborns along with sentient creatures. In fact, they were one of the first that supported Lord Black's Creatures' Rights Bill. They have been fighting in the Wizengamot for decades to help the wizarding community as a whole. A member of the Potter family was actually the one to write and present the bill for free Hogwarts schooling. Without the Potter family, many of the poor Muggleborns, half-bloods, and even some pure-blood families, Weasleys, would be forced to take loans in order to pay their way through Hogwarts. If those loans came from Gringotts, then good luck to those families. Because Gringotts is known for their high interest rates and brutal late terms. Thanks to actually being a good person, Lord Alphonse Potter is a person to look out for in the coming election. The pre-planned that Tom instructed his followers to do paid off, as the second the new year arrived, signs for Lord Black's candidacy were placed everywhere. Not just signs, but clothing as well. Every clothing store in Diagon Alley, and other places as well, were filled and advertising the merchandise. Clothing like this was never a thing in the wizarding world, so many asked why they would wear a shirt or hat like this. The workers were instructed to tell these people that if they want to support their candidate, buying their clothes will contribute to their campaign monetarily. While wearing their merchandise will help advertise their candidacy to others, drawing in more votes. Many that supported Lord Black and had the spare income to purchase the clothing flocked to the stores to show their support. Soon, many wizards and witches could be seen wearing clothing with Lord Black's silhouette and slogan on it. Securing our future. At the same time as the clothing and signs went out, every candidate made a trip to the ministry in order to register their candidacy. As soon as they were finished, Lord Black held a rally in Diagon Alley. Using his connections along with his lords, he was able to obtain permits in order to hold rallies all across Britain. Lord Black was 100 steps ahead of every other candidate. This is all thanks to Tom's pre-planning though. Without him, Lord Black would be floundering along with the other candidates. His first rally was advertised on the campaign signs, so many people going about their day saw them and learned of it. Arriving at the rally, Lord Black was met with a bigger crowd than he thought he would draw. Diagon Alley was packed when Lord Black arrived and took the stage. After calming the crowd, Lord Black made a speech that was written by his Lord Tom Riddle. It was a speech tackling the hardships of average working citizens. How they weren't paid enough for their work. There is no such thing as minimum wage in wizarding society. Everyone's wage was different depending on their job, and only those working in places like the ministry were paid enough to live comfortably. Lord Black offered to make a minimum wage that all employers would have to follow if he were elected. This drew the attention and adoration of many working-class citizens, while also drawing the anger and hatred of the few business owners and employers in the country. Next, Lord Black spoke about hospital bills. How one trip to St. Mungo's could bankrupt any normal family, depending on what the trip was for. The wizarding world doesn't have any form of medical insurance. If you want to pay your medical bills, you simply save money to pay them, which seldom works. For those that haven't saved enough, they take loans from the goblins or a rich family that's in that sort of business. Lord Black offered to make healthcare a universal right for all. The government would regulate how much medical treatment would be allowed to cost, so no one can charge 10 galleons for a medicine that costs 3 nuts to make, and pay for all medical treatment for its citizens. At this point, the crowd was absolutely stunned. Lord Black has offered them something that they didn't even know existed. They never in their wildest dreams would have thought a politician would offer them anything that could help in their daily lives, yet they're witnessing it happen right now, before their very eyes. Soon, the crowd started roaring Lord Black's name. In just a single rally, he captured the hearts of the working-class citizens, who just so happened to be the large majority of the voting population. Lord Black stood stunned on the stage as thousands of people chanted his name. He never thought his Lord's speech would have this sort of outcome. This marks the end of part 24 of the story, I'm Voldemort. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe the video to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.